Welcome everyone to Real Actors. This is the very first episode in this new venture, kind of a spin-off of Director's Cut. My name's John Dunning, as you know, if you're on this channel. I'm pretty much on everything else on here. But Real Actors is going to be like I said, kind of a spin-off of Director's Cut, where we're going to be kind of focusing in on an actor, actress. I always say actor, actress, but when I'm talking about female actresses, I always deem them actors too. I don't know. So that's why I'm not going to say real actresses, because real actors, I feel kind of covers everything. As you could tell, this is on a new location. This is not going to be a permanent setup. However, this is going to be the permanent place of shooting, but just not here per se. But right now, I figured it's nice outside. It is July 3rd. So I mean, fireworks are already rampant, so you're already going to be hearing a lot of kabooms, some very loud ones back here too, even though this is a very kind of woodsy area. But yeah, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. From Rad Entertainment, Mr. Tony Walters. Tony, hello? No? Oh, hi, John. I was supposed to be here, but I couldn't make it today. Oh, okay. So yeah, Tony isn't going to be joining us, but my sister Rebecca Morgan is going to be here. And hello, John. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to be here either. Okay, well, so you guys are stuck with me alone. So hopefully we'll get some people in the chat to kind of lighten the load for myself. So I'll pull that up while we're talking. But yeah, this is just kind of uh, with the other shows that we have going on with all the magic stuff. I'm going to be taking it on the road for that summer road trip. So we're going to be filming from some really awesome locations, starting with Mox Bellevue. That's going to be next week with Sam Tang. That's going to be a lot of fun. If you're into magic, then definitely tune into that. But until then, I'm just gonna kind of fill around. And like I said, it is such a nice day out here in the Pacific Northwest. We might as well take advantage of it while it's not raining and while it's not too hot. So, all right, pulling up the chat. All right, perfect. Just in case any of you guys want to talk about Jim Carrey. So, this series, again, real actors, we're going to be discussing one singular kind of actor. And in like director's cut, I'm probably, or unlike director's cut rather, we're not going to go through the entire filmography, because you know how much of a fan I am of Jim Carrey, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I have not seen every single Jim Carrey film. Some of his very, very earliest ones and some of his later ones I haven't seen, nor kind of do I want to see. But again, we'll get there too. But I do want to introduce my special guest that did not stand me up tonight, and that is Breakside Limited Edition Fourth Wave Coffee Beer aged in bourbon barrels. Oh, this one is going to be pretty sweet. This one is distributed by Northwest Beverage. But I did not get this from my boy Christian, although I still love you, buddy. I obtained it with actual money. And I know that's kind of strange and bizarre for me. But I saw it at a store that I don't usually go to, and I said, why the hell not? That sounds absolutely delicious. I love Breakside. I think the last time I reviewed a Breakside beer on the channel, it was that the some kind of wonderful ice cream caramel. Oh, it was a salted caramel stout. That's right. That was when we had Ashley Blodgett from Laugh Dash TV on here, and it was just an absolutely fantastic beer. I've had about three different styles of beer from Breakside. Sorry, I'm going to be twitching a lot. I am a Jewish prince, and I am not used to this much nature. And there is quite a bit. If you see in the background, there's quite a bit of nature. It's like a forest back there. So there are, I was pushed up over here a second ago, but there's a couple of spiders living there. So I'm not going to tempt fate. So if you see me twitching and stuff, it means I'm getting eaten alive by whatever's out here. But it's okay. I do this for you. But yeah, a couple Breakside beers I've had so far, but I've never had this one. And I thought it was gonna be a stout. I guess it's gonna be a brown ale. This thing looks pretty fantastic though. It's got a nice creamy head. Um, oh, just it smells so good. Doesn't really smell. I'm not getting a lot of coffee on the nose. I'm getting more of just that big bourbon. It's a 9.3%er, but it does have like a caramel sweetness to it. So cheers, everyone. I see a couple people watching. And like I said, You guys are the real special guests, other than Mr. Breakside right here. You guys are the special guests tonight, because it's just me talking, and I would love to interact with you guys. So, Lastrovia, cheers, all that good jazz, and let's sink into this. Okay. I don't know if I'd call this the coffee stout. This tastes like the salt or coffee. What do they call this? It's a coffee, just coffee beer aged in bourbon barrels. Okay, so it's not trying to be a stout, but there's like no hop bitterness. There's no, I mean, it just tastes like, man, like a caramel macchiato, but with very little coffee. There's not a whole lot of coffee in here. It just tastes like big caramely, sugary bourbon. Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. Okay, so we have Man Cave MTG is here. Pack Crack Fever is here. So Dr. Efren and my buddy Eric Williamson is in the chat. So fantastic. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And I do apologize again if you were expecting a little variety. You're just going to be seeing this ugly mug in my channel Fireball shirt. So at least I have some magic people here in the chat that will get that reference. But without further ado, you guys came to talk about Mr. James Carrey. This is not going to be a day in the from the beginning kind of journey through his life, because if you want to see that, go on Netflix and watch the documentary he did, kind of mostly pertaining to uh well, his transformation into Andy Kaufman for his role in Man in the Moon. That is just, I mean, that's what you need to see if you want to see a big autobiography of Jim Carrey. That's kind of the thing to check out, because coming from, yeah, it's going to be a little bit skewed because it's coming from him, and he tends to be a little bizarre, especially nowadays. But it does come off as pretty real, especially dealing with everything with that, with his transformation to Andy Kaufman. So if you really want a big jump into detailed, from when he was a wee Jim, go check that out. This is just more of a telling of his career through my eyes, my personal eyes, because let's just start it out. I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be talking to you guys if it weren't for Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey was everything when I was young. I think Ace Ventura. I'm kicking the camera. Ace Ventura came out in 1994. Strangely enough, so did and that's Ace Ventura: Pet Detective #1. Also, The Mask came out in summer that year, and then oh, someone's sawing. That's okay. Yeah, you're gonna hear a lot of dogs barking, hammering, people walking by. It's totally cool. We are guerrilla shooting here. But then and then also Dumb and Dumber came out that December. So I mean, 1994 really is when Jim Carrey exploded onto the scene. But he did have about 8 films before that. I'm just saying my introduction to James Carrey is Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, and I was, a ripe young age of 10, 11 back in 1994. So I mean, that movie literally changed my life. That movie gave me the goal in life to be on camera in one form of fashion or another. Um, I would run around, and this is why I kind of wanted my sister on, because she's a little bit older than me, and she remembers, she could totally vouch for this. I would wear that VHS out, just doing constant lines, staring at myself in the mirror, doing rubber face. I thought I was going to be the next Jim Carrey, and it didn't work out, but at least I'm doing something that I love in this. Um, but it was I idol like that was my first person I think I've ever idolized as far as entertainment goes. I could quote the movie, and it's really funny too. I could quote that movie like it's the back of my hand. But now thinking about it, Ace Ventura is definitely not my favorite Jim Carrey movie, just probably the most important for me personally. But just thinking about that film, and how important it was, I wanted to share it with my kids. Now I'm an old fart dad, and so I played it, and oh my, I did not like. They don't make movies these days like they did back in the 90s or 80s or whatever, but especially the early 90s. I mean, he is literally getting I'm checking if Rhino's in the chat. He's getting a BJ in the first like 10 minutes of the film. That's how he's getting paid for his services as a pet detective, dressing up as a UPS delivery driver. She had nothing. The nice lady had nothing to pay him, so she paid him. And I'm just like, oh God, don't look at the screen. I'm telling my children, because I'm just like, yeah, gather around, family, 4-year-old to 16-year-old and wife. Let's all sit around and watch a good family film. And oh my God, from it starts out like that and all the way to the end to he found Captain Winky. It's not a movie for children. So I'm interested to see, and I'm going to check the chat. Have any, that's a question. Have any of you, moms or dads out there that grew up with this film like I did, have you shown this movie to your kids, or are you kind of, backing off a little bit? Yeah, just checking the chat a little bit. Yeah, Once Bitten. Okay, and I do want to talk about Once Bitten, because Once Bitten, um, after 1994, essentially, and after a few years down the road, and I got my first job ever was at a Blockbuster Video, God rest their souls. I got, see, there's a big kaboom, number one, happy 3rd of July, a day early. But there, when I was at Blockbuster, that's when I'm just like, okay, I have unlimited, no internet or anything like that. I had unlimited access to Jim Carrey's filmography, and so I grabbed Once Bitten right away. And that movie is so much fun. I love Once Bitten. It does get a lot of shit, but I think it's absolutely incredible. It's just a very, if you haven't seen it, I think it's 1987, I believe, and it's just so good. It's just, the long and short of it, the quick synopsis is he falls in, or there's this kind of sexy vampire that moves into town, and he becomes a vampire. It's like this little 80s kind of vampire romp. Very, very fun. Yeah, definitely isn't a family film, especially with that nice fruit salad shot at the end. Yeah, indeed. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, Efren. Or Dr. Efren, I'm sorry. But yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's just like these films are just so, and it didn't get much better with Ace Ventura 2, which we'll get into a little bit, but just kind of closing up on Ace Ventura. I mean, that the first one, it was just absolutely amazing. It changed my life. It changed cinema and comedy, and that's really what it was. There was a big shift from movies. Comedies back then were really your Once Bittens, those kind of comedy romps, your bachelor party and whatnot, those kind of movies. And then they switched into the kind of the slapstick gross out humor because of Jim Carrey and because his slapstick brilliance and his performances. He is an actor that is 150% all the time. At least he was at this, especially at this point, where it was just absolutely balls to the wall all the time. And you could hear from some of the actors, if you go back and read into it, some of the actors were very annoyed with him. They did not, I mean, he was doing things that nobody ever seen, nobody ever had to deal with, where there are method actors like Daniel Day-Lewis and stuff like that, but imagine a method actor. There's boom number two, a method actor like Jim Carrey, where he's just stuck in the role of Ace Ventura, and you have to interact with this person when the camera's off, and it's just you A, can't get a word in, B, you're probably laughing your ass off, and C, if you're not finding it funny, you're just in absolute cinema hell. So it's so funny to think about just where that took cinema and just completely spun it on its head at the time. So now, as Eric said, moving along to The Mask. And The Mask was something that was, again, not very kid friendly. I mean, there's that wonderful scene, for a little different reasons, but that wonderful scene where he goes to the mechanic and he does his whole whirlwind and he winds up shoving the mufflers right up that dude's exhaust pipe. It's great. Again, not kid friendly. The Mask as a whole, the idea, it was a comic book, and one of the most violent comic books that you'll ever see. I believe it was from Dark Horse. And The Mask, it was just Number three, one of the most bloody, violent comic books. If you could find it, go check it out because they really scaled it back to make it kind of a kid friendly type film. Um, and again, like I said, it does have some adult themes in there, but but I would even argue that it's not even as adult themed as Ace Ventura was. But the mask was absolutely. I mean, the makeup in the mask still holds up to this day. The effects are great. You know, this is the introduction to Cameron Diaz, which no one wanted to cast her, and she just kind of didn't go away. And the director finally got his way and got her on screen, and which is great because I think she did a terrific job with Jim Carrey. They had great chemistry. But this was the first time we got to see it, and I keep saying first time, but you know we did have those films like Once Bitten, Everything before. I'm saying kind of, you know, BA, I guess you would say, like before Ace. And that's really when, especially America, because he is Canadian, you know, maybe these earlier films were a lot more well known, you know, widely released in Canada because a lot of them were Canadian films. But as far as, you know, the US goes, BA is kind of what I'm saying when I said, you know, his introduction is everything Ace Ventura and up. So yeah, the mask, with all that said, with the mask, it was just crazy. It was the first time we got to see him as a dual role character where you got to see Stanley Ipkiss, Jim Carrey playing it straight because in Ace Ventura, he doesn't take, you know, his foot off the gas one bit in the whole thing. He's balls to the wall all the time. In Ace Ventura, or in The Mask rather, you get to see that he is a real person, and he is playing kind of a normal person in Stanley Ipkiss. And then the contrast of that is just so sweet where he does when he puts the mask on, and it's just absolutely fantastic. It's probably one of the best comic book movies of all time. And you know, we have our Avengers and we have all of our, you know, DCEU, if you're still watching that, I don't know, but we have all those films. But The Mask really is a fantastic comic book, and they tried to replicate it since, and it's just been absolutely terrible because, you know, the secret to the whole story is Jim Carrey. And so just some great a lot of it's just so quick and clean and snappy, but a lot of it was even improv, which is just so crazy to think because it is such there's so many effects going on in those set pieces, but he still managed and he was still trusted, just batting bugs, you know, left and right with material to be able to build on that. And that's great because that means that the filmmakers really did trust someone like that because of his stand-up background and his background in Living Color. And that's really where I, you know, ooh, that was a big one. That's really where I saw him first. You know, I did see, you know, Ace Ventura is kind of when he blew up on screen, but in Living Color, and I saw the chat or the Twitter post that I put on. Someone mentioned some of his In Living Color characters, which are absolutely fantastic. You know, his Vanilla Ice, his the burnt old guy, and all that. Really disturbing. You know, he was just this kind of he was the token white guy on this you know, In Living Color, which was, you know, for all intents and purposes kind of like uh you know, a Saturday Night Live, like an urban Saturday Night Live, which just so good. You know, so many people came from In Living Color. David Allen Greer, the Wayans brothers, Jennifer Lopez as a fly girl, and Jim Carrey, and he just kind of stuck out not just because of his ethnicity, but because of his crazy rubber man performances. And I just want to kind of jump to the chat real quick. Ratchet, the awesome one. Hello, how's it going? Um, yeah, the old drunk guy he played was hilarious, Eric. Let's see here. I remember seeing that in the theater, and I laughed so hard I thought I was going to pass out. Just the scene where he first turns into Hank. Absolutely. Oh man, that's a really good point out there, Eric. Me, myself, and Irene. I don't even think I had that on my radar when I was putting everything together, but me, myself, and Irene was just so, and we'll kind of get to that next, but let's jump, and we're still in 1994. You know, Ace Ventura, The Mask happened, and then that December, I think it was December 16th, something along those lines. That's when we got Dumb and Dumber. again, more in the lines of an Ace Ventura character where there's no real break. He's not like a real person, even though when Jim Carrey is a real person, like in Liar Liar or Me, Myself, and Irene, when he does, he's still like an ultra realistic normal person. He's a real person, but just so animated. And he really didn't even attempt to kind of mute those tones until way later into his career. But yeah, Floyd Christmas. Oh man, Dumb and Dumber comes out. What a year! What a movie to cap it off. Him and Jeff Daniels are fucking fantastic. Dumb and Dumber. It's I don't have. It's probably out of those three, and those are kind of like the holy trinity of just him exploding onto the scene. Dumb and Dumber is probably my least favorite of the three, although a lot of people would say The Mask. Because I don't know, The Mask I still feel is kind of polarizing, although it kind of shouldn't be. I'm just checking if any bugs are trying to fly in my beer and trying to enjoy it with me. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I just want to know what I'm getting into. um but it's probably still my least favorite, even though it's just absolutely hilarious. I mean, it, saying that that's the bad one, that's like saying that that piece of pepperoni pizza had one less pepperoni than the rest. I mean, Dumb and Dumber is still such a classic. It's so well done. And I think it was written and directed by one of the Farrelly brothers, which again, full circle, he would go on to work again with Me, Myself, and Irene. So before we move on, from that, his kind of big introduction to everything, and what kind of set the tone for Jim Carrey's career pretty much through the rest of the 90s until some of his tonal shift hit films, as in the Truman Show and whatnot. Yeah, before I jump into that, I just want to kind of check the chat again, interact with you guys, because like I said, you are the special guest. So yeah. Bird, yeah. King, yeah. Oh yeah, it's so good. He had a blonde woman stuck out every time in the cast was together. He and the blonde woman. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. In Living Color. Wish I could remember her. Yeah, I do. I know what you're talking about, and man, I have her face, and I can't remember her name. I'd have to look it up. Someone look it up in the chat. Exactly, they both look so damn awkward. And I know this is about Jim Carrey, but I'm curious if you're going to continue to watch if Rick dies. Oh, okay, so Ratchet's here for Walking Dead stuff, and yeah, real quick spoiler, just because you're here and we're just talking, having beers, I absolutely believe that Rick's gonna die, and it sucks. And I don't know if that means that my fandom with The Walking Dead dies with it, but we will see. But let me just pull up. I'm gonna pull away from the chat real quick, just because I want to pull up Jim Carrey's stuff and see what's next. Yeah, oh man, just so many things are like popping up, and I pride myself on kind of being an impressionist, but I think my neighbor's outside downstairs, so I think I'm talking enough. I don't think I'm going to. Earth Girls are easy. I forgot about that. I don't think I'm going to jump right into that. Okay, so the next one, wow, the next one, talk about a shift, was Batman Forever. Oh boy, Schumacher's first Batman. I could do a whole something. I mean, we could just call it something else. We could just call it just pile of shit reviews, and that would be some of the Batman reviews, and the Schumacher Batmans. But this was the one where it was half serious, because by the time it got to Batman and Robin, they just didn't care anymore. When you have a George Clooney with the bat nipples trying to pay for something with the bat visa, you just don't care any longer. Although funny, I don't mind funny. I don't want my Batmans treated that way. I'm sorry. There's just no room in this little black heart for my Batmans to be treated that way. But this was when Joel Schumacher was halfway trying still, and that was Batman Forever. And this was, I think, Jim Carrey's first introduction as a villain, the Riddler. And this was a very, at the time I watched it, and again, I was still pretty young. It came out in, let's see, 1995, so only a year later. So I think I was maybe 12 years old, 11 years old when Batman Forever came out. I was obsessed with Batman, the Tim Burton Batmans, Batman and Batman Returns. So when this came out, I was super amped for it. It had a Seal song. I was very happy when Seal won the best song for uh Gift from a Rose or whatever for the MTV Movie Awards. I remember that like it was yesterday. So I did enjoy the movie when I was young. Flash forward, whoa, that movie is just, oof, I know. It's just rough. And even Jim Carrey's performance is so over the top. And it just didn't match the tones. And I have to say, Val Kilmer did the best he could. He wasn't a horrible Batman, but Tommy Lee Jones, complete miscast for Two-Face. And then just, yeah, Jim Carrey as Edward Nigma. Just, I mean, I haven't seen a prominent bulge like that since David Bowie in Labyrinth. He definitely had the Bowie bulge going on in that Riddler leotard. I don't know why they decided to go that route with the costume design. But there was no mystery, and it wasn't just that. It wasn't, I mean, who cares? I could handle bad costume design, but there was just something off with the performance. There was something off with the whole tone of the movie, especially coming off of Burton's Batman's, and it just didn't click. And like I said, I remember when I was a kid, I bought the toys, I did all that, I was into it. But nowadays, I watched it recently and I'm just like, dude, this is bad. And I remember at the time, even as a wee lad, and this was really pre internet to what it is now, it got number 4, number 5. It got critically panned. It did not do very well. People did not receive it, and Jim Carrey's performance, I think this was kind of the first shot on the chin that Carrey took, just because it just wasn't good. And I saw someone in the Twitter, and I'll get to the Twitter poll in a little bit, to find out, what won as far as the best Jim Carrey films went. But someone put The Riddler on, in their favorites, and I get it. I mean, it's still very fun. It's still very Jim Carrey, but it just the all the ingredients were okay, but putting it all together, it made a mess. All right, moving on. So this was, I mean, he had a little rough stretch. So 1996, think about it. He did okay. No, so 1995, Ace Ventura: Nature Calls, some great. It's just a little bit forgettable for me. It had some great moments. They try to kind of redo, a lot of things, a lot of tones from the other ones, or from the first one rather. I liked it. I appreciated When Nature Calls, but it couldn't recapture the magic as much as the first one. It might have just been because it was just so, no one was expecting Ace Ventura when it came out. So when it did come out, it just took the world by storm. Them trying to change the setting a little bit, and again, some really adult themes. Checking the chief's daughter, if she's, still has her womanhood and all this. And I know someone mentioned in the Twitter link, or the Twitter thread today, about um the spear scene. Very funny. I mean, just absolutely hilarious stuff. I still say, when I pull into a parking lot, I still say, like a glove. That was a terrible impression, and I blame this. I am just kicking my stuff all around. Jeez, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. This isn't the Bill Murray spotlight. This is Jim Carrey. Anyways, yeah, I still quote the movie. It's still great. It just wasn't what it was. And I think it wasn't what the original was. And I think coming off of, um, playing the Riddler 2, where he already had a little bit of mud on his face from that, it didn't really land as much. It was just like, okay, when he was just like boom, 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 and he made those three films in the same year, and they were all fantastic, and they were all comedy classics. He could do no wrong. But then after the Riddler, everyone's like, okay, I can see a little, crack in the armor. And then Ace Ventura 2 came out, and people started wavering. And then the next film came out the next year, and that's The Cable Guy. And The Cable Guy, I want to ask the chat. I'm back on the chat. And it looks like Eric Williamson's already say we quote Cable Guy around the house constantly. Okay, so I definitely see that there's at least one fan. I want to ask you guys, what do you think about The Cable Guy? And I'm just gonna, yep, it's a great film from Dr. Efron. Cable Guy so underrated. Forgettable is fair for Ace Ventura for sure. And Eric's going to the bathroom. But let's see, BRB, New Age. Cable Guy is a great movie. Thanks. MTG Strategist has joined us as well. Okay, so it probably. I thought I was one of the lone people here, because again, when Cable Guy came out, it's directed by Ben Stiller. It was with Matthew Broderick. It was critically panned. Again, this was when people were just kind of Jim Carrey, when he came out with Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura, and then, all this stuff. By the time we got to Ace Ventura 2, I feel like he was on, if you guys remember, you guys and gals remember, he was on TV constantly. He was on SNLs. He was on news. He was on any interview, anything, because of how popular and how amazing those movies were. Shit, they paid him $10 million for the role of Floyd Christmas. Do you think that Jeff Daniels got that role for Harry? I doubt it. I doubt that Jeff Daniels got paid that. So, I mean, Jim Carrey just blew the fuck up, just like all these fireworks around me are. He was just absolutely everywhere. So I think at this time, when we got to The Cable Guy and it shifted and that dark tone, I think people were getting a little Jim Carrey fatigued at that time. And the Cable Guy, I just think, is one of the most underrated performances from him, because it is hyper realistic, but it is just so bizarre. And it's just, I said that Riddler is kind of the villain. I mean, he definitely is the villain in Cable Guy as well, but it's just absolutely hilarious. Just everything with the, I still quote a lot of the things when he's quoting Spock. Well, they're doing the fight scene in the Tournament of Kings. Just, I mean, there's so much amazing imagery in that. The nightmare scene is very Tim Burton, is very 90s, 80s, 90s Tim Burton. It was just such an underrated film. And the whole time it has that weird through line with the Ben Stiller playing the two twins that murdered their family and all that. It's just so, it had such a different dark tone as far as other Jim Carrey movies went. And I'm not saying adult themed, because Ace Ventura definitely adult themed. The Mask definitely kind of noir, slapstick comedy, but very violent. But Cable Guy was just, it was just creepy. And a lot of people didn't know how to feel about that. They liked their Jim Carrey funny and relatable and somewhat family friendly, at least for how the 90s viewed family friendly movies. When it got to Cable Guy, he was just such a creep and so crazy, but just such a fantastic performance. And I want to see, just some agreements in the chat. I think there were yeah. I'm honestly surprised you guys actually like the. Oh yeah, see, there you go. Hey, so Eric, from Man Cave, he doesn't, Man Cave TV. He does not like The Cable Guy. So see, that's what I'm saying. It's just like, I'm surprised that everyone did like it, because I knew at the time people just hated the shit out of that film, and I loved it absolutely, just so much. I whenever there's karaoke, if you could get me karaokeing these days, I used to do it a lot. But if you could get me karaokeing, I will still do Somebody to Love in Jim Carrey's voice. I'm serious. Like, if I'll go to a GP or something next time, and after hours, get a mic in my hand, get a few of these in my body, and I will sing Somebody to Love from the Cable Guy rendition. So okay, so let's jump back, get back into, okay, so the next film and that was the only film he did in 1996. So it's kind of telling. I mean, this man was just on fire and just couldn't was nonstop with everything constantly all the time. Jim Carrey all the time, but and did 3 films in 94. We get to 96 and Cable Guy's it. People were kind of freaked out. People didn't know what to do. I'm like staring at this giant mosquito right now. I'm just getting prepared. I'm getting an exit strategy. Like I said, I'm such a Jewish prince. Me even living in Washington is crazy. Let alone sitting out here doing this in dusk. Uh, but anyway, I'm gonna brave through it. But yeah, so yeah, pulling it back. So Cable Guy, the only movie he did then, and it was just, that was crazy. That's when people started, a lot of people fell off of that the hype train with him. And it was just because they're like, yeah, it's he was weird. And we were burned out because we got so much of him, and now he's doing these kind of weird darker films. And then Liar Liar comes out. Liar Liar comes out 97. I think I've seen Liar Liar more than I've seen any other film. I know. It's a John Hughes, like Rob Reiner type feel good family film. It doesn't have a lot of, I mean, it does have a few adult themes in it. You know, I've had better. And there is better movies. Something about Liar Liar, I could put, if you put it on your house, I will sit down and watch the entire thing and get mad if you're talking, because I think, and this might be a completely unpopular opinion, I think that this is Jim Carrey's best comedic performance in his entire career. That's saying a lot coming from me because of how I feel about The Mask, of how I feel about Ace Ventura. Ace Ventura changed my life. This is his best comedic performance, and it's not, and it's a he plays a lawyer, for fuck's sake. But he's just hyper realistic enough where, and an unsung hero of this movie is Carrie Yules. The claw, you're afraid of the claw, you're scared of the claw. You know, it's that part kills me more than most of what Jim Carrey's doing on screen in that movie. But I love Jerry, Magoo, Mr. Magoo, basically the boyfriend. He's just so fantastic. I love Carrie Yules anyways. He can make a pile of shit look good. See Saw 1. I probably just got a bunch of hate for that. But yeah, Liar Liar, best comedic performance by Jim Carrey. Talk about quotable. Talk about, I mean, just go watch the credit roll, the credit outtakes, and he's going back and forth with the other lady. Oh, it's killing me. I can't remember her name. It's not Sissy Spacek. It's oh damn. Oh well, the older lady that plays the prosecution lawyer. And they're just going back and forth, and she just yells over actor at him, and the whole place erupts because it's just, he's just absolutely fantastic in that entire film. The physical comedy in Liar Liar is probably more taxing and more insane than anything he did in Ace Ventura or The Mask. He is just constantly bouncing around, but can still bring back his performance while he's interacting with his son in the film, and still be a touching film and a family film. And then the next thing, he's telling off his boss, you're a pedantic, you're a pedantic pontificating something bastard, a belligerent old fart, a worthless steaming pile of cow dung, figuratively speaking. I could go on forever. I've seen Liar Liar so much, but that was the first time when I said, I idolized them as a kid with Ace Ventura, but when I said, this man is probably one of the best actors that ever, we're seeing something special. It's like watching LeBron play, or Jordan play back in the day, or certain sports, Tom Brady play. It's like you're sitting there and you're like, I am seeing something that hasn't been done, and something that is not probably going to be done again. It's just, there, after Jordan, there was LeBron, and there was Kobe, and there was all these other great players. And, while Manning was playing, there was Brady and all this stuff. But it's just, when you watch Jim Carrey in Liar Liar, there's something so special about it. It's just absolutely fantastic. It's probably in one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. If you haven't seen it or seen it recently, go watch it again and laugh your ass off. Because it's just so great. Young Mage is here. Sorry, buddy, for all the stuff I was saying earlier, but yeah, I can't lie. Oh, it's so great. With the stepdad does the claw, I lose it. Yeah, it's just it's fantastic. Yeah, he did a great job doing the back and forth from serious to over the top comedy. Absolutely, absolutely. The crazy dichotomy of going from being, caring about Fletcher, and his son's relationship, Maximilian, and then from that, then he's going to just absolute craziness. Him beating the crap out of himself in the bathroom, comic genius. Like I would be very surprised to see anything like that. I mean, they don't make structure movies like this any longer. Maybe some Edgar Wright films, like Simon Pegg kind of does that from time to time. That's a helicopter. But they just don't structure movies like this anymore, because I just don't think that they trust actors like this really anymore. Because it's like just turning them loose and seeing them go. The pen is blue. But I could literally go on about Liar Liar forever. It might be it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. It might be one of my favorite. It might be my favorite, but it might not be. Next, Man on the Moon. Again, I can't say anything that he didn't say himself about the transformation that he did in Man on the Moon, because it's nothing short of brilliant. Especially coming from playing Fletcher Reed, Mr. Reed. I seriously go on forever, but coming from as far as Jim Carrey goes, a family film kind of feel good movie of the year in Liar Liar, even though it's brilliant, transforming into Andy Kaufman, who is just one of the most enigmatic beings that has ever been on any stage, SNL, all that. So much to cover. And again, I could talk about Andy Kaufman forever. Shit, let alone talk about Jim Carrey's complete transformation. And he didn't just transform into playing Andy Kaufman. He transformed into playing all the characters that Andy Kaufman played, and that was off the screen. He did so well, and go watch the thing about it on Netflix, about him talking about his transformation to Man on the Moon. I mean, this is what really broke Jim Carrey. This is where he dove too deep. And I know some actors do that while playing roles, autobiographic roles. I don't think Jim Carrey was ever the same after playing and becoming Andy Kaufman. I mean, he played it so much and played it so well, and even more so that, I mean, Jerry Lawler hated Jim Carrey. They got into a real fight. He couldn't stand him. He even, you could hear him screaming at him, just like this was never, when the thing was off, Andy still was kind of normal, and they had a friendship, him and Jerry the King Lawler. Not him, not Jim Carrey. I mean, he played it so over the top. A ultra realistic Andy Kaufman is a scary thing. And he did that, and he pissed a lot of people off. I know Paul Giamatti was in that, and he didn't know what the hell was going on half the time. It's a very special thing all the way up. Spoilers. Andy Kaufman really passed away from cancer and all that, and even that, he was so obnoxious and all over the place. Jim Carrey playing him, but even in that transition, I mean, he played it to a T, and he was sick. He was drinking a lot. He started smoking cigarettes. He just became this person. But I think he let too much of his own personal demons seep out as well. So as much as everyone was seeing Andy Kaufman, Danny DeVito's just like, it's like in the room with Andy again. But he also, I think, opened a floodgate of himself and just let out too much. And I don't think he ever has been able to kind of put it back in the jar, so to speak. Because I mean, you look at stuff today that Jim Carrey does or says, he's kind of a nut job. And I think it's because I think it was because of this role. And I don't think we'll ever see something like this from him again. But I don't think we should. But after that, um, okay, sorry, reading some chats, reading some texts. Okay, so going from that, everyone's so uptight. I know I'm sent. Oh, there's a lot of I miss a lot of chat. Sorry, I was going on kind of a tirade about that. But it's important to say. Wasn't around Was that around the time he was showing up towards shows looking like a bum? Absolutely. And for some reason I'm blanking on the character's name. Andy Kaufman would play a character, and he would also have and Andy's manager would also dress up like this person too. Man, I forget the name of the character, but he would walk around. He had like big glasses. He was just like always had his shirt open, just really disrespectful, drunk all the time. Was it Lou something? Oh man, I don't remember. But yeah, he would do that. And then he did that as well, or Jim Carrey did that as well. But all right, going to the next one. That is Me, Myself, and Irene. Kind of a return to form, but this was the most adult comedy that we'd get from Jim Carrey, I think. And it's a classic. Farrelly Brothers, written, directed, just fantastic. This is when he started he had a fling with Renee Zellweger. He plays a dual role again, which I love when he does this because he plays the oh man, I don't remember the characters' names, but I know Hank. Hank is the evil one. That's the Hyde, and I can't remember the Jekyll, but just fantastic movie. Jim Carrey breastfeeding is such a funny scene. Just what a romp. I mean, him and his sons. It's absolutely fantastic. The whole movie is very quotable, although you probably shouldn't. Not PC at all, and a complete divergence from his more family friendlies like his Liar Liars and stuff like that. But Me, Myself, and Irene, very underrated. I still quote, we got a full on fallopian fungus, someone's baking sourdough, or someone's baking bread, and I think it's sourdough. Better put a rush on that. It's just, I could go on forever. But Me, Myself, and Irene, absolutely fantastic. And it was good to see him kind of come back, or kind of return to form, be able to at least on screen bounce back a little bit, and do that great kind of, although more risque, kind of classic Jim Carrey role. How the Grinch Stole Christmas was next in the same year. So Me, Myself, and Irene and Grinch came out in 2000. It's not Jim Carrey's fault, is all I'm gonna say. I did not like this film. I hated this film, but it was not his. He did everything he could. I don't think that. I don't know. I was gonna say I don't think that he was the right choice for the role, but like I said, the only thing good about the film is him. So, he did all he could. How the Grinch Stole Christmas, it should just, and I can't believe they're making another one, and giving more. And this one's gonna be more like family friendly. It just, I don't know. It just doesn't look good. Um, it just watch the original. Watch the original Dr. Seuss transfer from book to screen, and you're golden. It just didn't need to happen. So he did all he could do. Moving on, The Majestic, 2001. And the Majestic, so there's kind of a jump here. And I think he was kind of wearing down at this point. It's not like I know him personally. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But, from 2000, he did two movies, and then The Majestic, and then he took 2002 off. Oh, no. Okay, so that's why I'm like, where the hell's Truman Show? I completely passed Truman Show. Truman Show was after Liar Liar, before Man in the Moon. Truman Show was 1998. So before, yeah, let's talk about that real quick. Truman Show was his first serious role. Truman Show was absolutely fantastic. One of my favorite movies again. And it just goes to show you how great of an actor Jim Carrey is. He's still Jim Carrey. So the you but he's extremely his performance is extremely grounded in this film. There is a couple Jim Carrey moments in there where he is that ultra realistic, even though he's playing like the straight man, like a normal person. But just him gardening, and it's just like his ass in the screen, and him looking over his shoulder. Very Jim Carrey, had very Jim Carrey moments. But I remember seeing this film in theaters, and I think this was the first film where I actually cried during a Jim Carrey film. And at the very end, when and this is spoiler, it's a 10-year-old, 20-year-old movie, something like that. When he escapes, so to speak, and he is, he crashes into the wall, and it's just like he just loses it. And it's like a silent scene too. I think it's just music playing. I don't think you could hear any sound effects or him talking, and it just kills you. He did such a fantastic job as playing this role, as the role of Truman. Ed Harris is great in this film. It's one of those very, very, very special films. And it kind of runs parallels too, because I think this is the same time when Dark City came out. And if you watch my channel at all, you'll see that I and or myself and Jay Manning from Classic Flicks did a video review of like a retro review for Dark City. And although completely tonally different, Dark City's, dark and crazy and sci-fi and all this stuff and dangerous, where the Truman Show is just more of along the lines of a long lifetime episode of Big Brother, where it's a fishbowl kind of format. But it's almost weird and similar because with the whole nothing is real and everything is, it's crazy the way they pulled this off. But it's absolutely fantastic. I love the Truman Show. Yeah, Dr. Efron says it was great right after the director tried to kill him. Yeah, Truman Show. Yeah, and that's the thing. People hated Cable Guy, except 99% of my chat, Eric. But people love Truman Show, and that was good. That was good to see, and that's what kind of took him in. He rode that wave into Man in the Moon. So I apologize for skipping that first. So we talk about that. So in the Majestic, 1 second. So the Majestic is, and first off, everyone in the chat, everyone watching, thank you so much for still joining me, even though it's a bit later than what I said. I do apologize. I was stuck in rush hour traffic in Seattle area. So I appreciate you guys still coming on and chatting with me about this stuff, and especially because I'm just alone with my beer. But yes, next, the Majestic, real quick. I loved it. Not like maybe I'm gonna ask the chat. How many of you in the chat have seen the Majestic? And we'll just kind of, yeah, Dark City is great. Hell yes, Eric Williamson. Oh, and I keep saying Eric like I'm talking. When I'm saying Eric, it's probably at Man Cave for not liking Cable Guy, but I forgot there's two Erics in here. Young Mage says, I like the Truman Show. Good. I was streaming earlier, new Planeswalker. Say, ooh, cool. Can't wait to see it, buddy. Maybe I'll have to check it out. Absolutely. But yes, if anyone's seen the Majestic, let me know in the chat. I love the Majestic. It's a very, again, performance similar to Truman Show, very muted, but you do not get any of those flashes of Jim Carrey-esque moments. You don't get the Jim Carrey isms, where he does kind of break it for a little bit and just does kind of something funny. Definitely Man in the Moon. He didn't do any Jim Carrey isms. He definitely did a lot of Andy Kaufman isms, but Majestic, yeah, still haven't seen. Want to now, please do. I don't think I got around to seeing Majestic. Yeah, and that's totally understandable. No one saw this film. No one wanted to see this film, which was the kind of the odd thing. It was just so it's one of the most intimate films. I think that's the best word to describe it. It's melancholy, it's intimate, it's small, very small, small cast, small stakes. I mean, there's no stakes. It's not like it's a comic book movie. It's just it's just about nostalgia, but it's so damn feel good, um, and just sad too because it's like an era movie. It's like, you know, moving on from an era of something in your life, and it's just, or if you feel attached emotionally to a place, and then that place is antiquated or outdated and there's no plans on updating or preserving, that's all the things, that's all these themes and tones for the Majestic, and it's just it's really good. um but moving on, what year did it come out? I'm gonna check for you. It came out in 2001. So 2001, and this is what I was saying before I realized that Truman Show. I didn't get a Truman Show. It was 2001. So 2000, that Majestic came out. Then he didn't do anything until Bruce Almighty. And some people in that Twitter poll said that. Oh, okay. So I can talk about the Twitter poll real quick. I sent out, what's your favorite Jim Carrey performance, your most memorable Jim Carrey performance? Ace Ventura 1 did win, but the other, because I put the mask and I put Eternal Sunshine on there. The Ace Ventura did win. However, other, and that's where it just got really good and really spicy. Came out, and people started naming their favorite performances. And I think Dr. Efron's, gave me crap for leaving off. I forgot. I think it was Me, Myself, and Irene or something like that. No, it wasn't that. Number 6. I don't know. But one of them I left off, and I was like, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. But there's, Twitter gives you 3 and then an other. So it's just like, people remember Ace Ventura. People, a lot of people remember The Mask. Maybe I could have left that one off. And a lot of people, I wanted to put Eternal Sunshine on there just for, I think it was Truman Show, just for that complete shift of tone where it was not watching a Jim Carrey film. But Bruce Almighty is next. I did not see it, so I'm going to kind of defer to the chat on that one. What did you guys think about it? What did you guys think about Bruce Almighty? Because I didn't see it. I don't know why. It was one of those ones that just kind of slipped through the cracks. I heard it was good. It had a religious spin on it, which is, if it's done in a funny way, whatever. I mean, Dogma is one of my favorite, but it just, yeah, I don't know. It was just one of those ones I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get to it because it's a Jim Carrey film, and I never did. So yeah, I'll defer to the chat on that one. But next up after that, okay. Whew. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind might be my favorite. It's in my top. This is another one where it's weird. I do this a lot, especially on Director's Cut, where this might be in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Yet, I don't think this is my favorite Jim Carrey movie. So, and it makes sense, but it doesn't. My favorite Jim Carrey, like I said, comedic performance is Liar Liar, probably hands down. Most important, probably Ace Ventura, because of just my introduction to him as what he was known by. Man on the Moon, because what a transformative experience that was. But oh my flippin' Jeeves, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I don't, and I said I think I had emotion at the end of the Truman Show. I can't watch Eternal Sunshine now without, again, I've seen this movie 100 times without getting emotional. It just, and it's not just, and I can't just give all the credit to Jim Carrey. I mean, this movie as a whole is just fire. I mean, it is just, if you've ever had that relationship, and you know what? I was talking to some people, it's like a lot of people do. A lot of people have that relationship that did work out, but mostly didn't work out. And it's just like, if you had the choice, if you had the chance rather, to be able to physically erase them from your mind because of how much how much they drilled out, how much they cored your soul, would you do it? And that's what the theme of this movie is. And it's Mark Ruffalo's in it. Kirsten Dunst is fantastic in it. Kate Winslet, I'm not a huge fan usually. She was just brilliant in this film. So the director, I think he's a French director, just got performances like none other I've ever seen out of the characters of this film. Elijah Wood, fantastic in this film. Um, Eternal Sunshine, it's an eyegasm. It's brilliant to look at. It's so much fun to watch, yet it has so much substance. You know, we were on the last director's cut, we were talking about Edgar Wright, where a lot of people say style over substance. Eternal Sunshine is all style, all substance. It's a 10 out of 10 on every aspect. It's just really a perfect film. It's a perfect film in my opinion, and you can't say otherwise. Or I mean you can, but you can't convince me otherwise rather. Of course, if you don't agree, then yes, I am not the person to tell you. There is so much going on in the chat. I can't even keep up. It was a movie. Eric Williams says it was a movie that left me feeling like a different person when it was over. Beautiful movie. Beautiful comment. I can't even. I mean, that's exactly it. When you're done, I felt a little emotionally violated after watching Eternal Sunshine because I'm like, how the hell did they make a movie about me? I had a relationship like that, eh, as people tend to do when you're older, Rhino, of course. But if you're still here, if not, no problem. Um, it's just it makes you feel like someone took something from you after watching the film. It's just everything. So we're getting to number 23. Sorry, Eric from Man Cave. I did not see number 23. It's just again another one. And we're getting to a point where we are gonna kind of wrap this up because I haven't seen a lot of the other films, and I'll kind of tell you why. But yeah, but just after Eternal Sunshine, Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, Jim Carrey at his finest. Character acting. This was what he was trying to do with the Riddler, I think, or some of these other roles. He is just he plays like he Eddie Murphy's this shit, where kind of like Nutty Professor, but he still plays Count Olaf, but he's still like 8 different versions of him, and I just think it's so great, so entertaining, such a weird movie, such a great movie. We try to watch the family and I try to watch the series on Netflix with oh god, Dookie Howser. I'm brain farting right now. Anyways, it's just not the same. It's good, but it's like almost like yeah, I don't know. It's not again, Jim Carrey just elevated that to the utmost. It's marketed as a kids film, so much smarter. I mean, it's got Meryl Streep in it. This movie is just absolutely fantastic. So if you haven't seen Lemony Snicket's Series of Fortunate Events, very underrated, very dark, especially for a kids film. Please go watch it. Fun with Dick and Jane, didn't like it. I don't think it was his fault, but this is kind of when he decided to start taking these kind of roles where it was like he gave so much to Man in the Moon and to Ace Ventura and to all these other films where he got so method with it. I think he needed a mental break, but he couldn't figure out just to like and even Eternal Sunshine, because I'm sure that brought up some stuff too. But I think at this point after Series of Unfortunate Events, he's just started taking roles and he just started taking roles that were just like, okay, they're funny, they're fine, they're safe, but it just really was paycheck roles. And I feel like definitely Fun with Dick and Jane was that, and I just didn't like it. Number 23, like Eric from Man Cave stated, I didn't see it. I would like to see it because I heard it. He's like a serial killer in it. Horton Hears a Who, very good performance. animated film. Fantastic. Him and Steve Carell crush it. Again, back to Dr. Seuss. That was Dr. Seuss done well. So maybe the new Grinch will be better because it is all CG. But like I said before, the Grinch, the only good thing about it was Jim Carrey's performance and the costume design. So Jeffrey Tambor is pretty funny in that too. But yeah, Horton Hears a Who, fantastic. Very, very good performance. Yes, Man, again, just like Fun with Dick and Jane, the safe movie. Very forgettable. I've seen it. I don't remember much about it. I remember the premise. He was fine, but it just wasn't a Jim Carrey good role. It just I love you, Philip Morris. It's one that's on my to-do list. Him and Ewan McGregor. I would love to do one of these types of shows on Ewan McGregor because he is one of my favorite actors as well. Um, Very important actor. However, didn't see it. Heard the premise, or the premise looks funny, but just one of those that I just haven't gotten around to. Again, we're kind of going through it fast because this is kind of the time where I, for some reason, stopped watching Jim Carrey films just because they were not as interesting. At least on paper, they weren't like original ideas. They were just these kind of red box schlock, and I don't know. So I'm gonna pour some more of this. And I didn't really check my audio, so I really hope I sound decent. I mean, again, I still sound like me, so I don't know if that's saying much, but I don't know if the audio is coming through well. Especially this is my first time filming outside. It was kind of a nice crash course to see how it's gonna be filming on location at Mox Bellevue next week with Sam Tang. So it's kind of nice to see like the element, so to speak, even though we'll be in a controlled room, but it's going to be in a public place. All right, Christmas Carol's next. Zemeckis film. It's Christmas Carol. It's been done a million times. By the time this one came out, I'm just like, I'm a little bit interested because Jim Carrey is Ebenezer Scrooge, but it wasn't great. It was pretty forgettable. I'd just rather watch Polar Express. Next we have Mr. Popper's Penguins. Could you get more number 8? Could you get, that was a big one. Can you get more generic than that? Just a weird family film. Didn't have any interest of seeing it. Glad I still haven't seen it. And chat, tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe it's a good film. I just don't know. Never saw it. Never want to see it. Mr. Popper's Penguins. The Incredible Burt Wonderstone. Good. No, thank you. Haven't seen it, heard nothing but horrible things about it, and not just from critics, from people that I actually listened to. Did not like Incredible Burt Wonderstone, or not even liked it. Didn't see it, and kind of don't want to. Kick-Ass 2. Okay, Kick-Ass 2. I just saw Kick-Ass 2. I just saw Kick-Ass 2 yesterday. Kind of in preparation for this, and also kind of because I loved Kick-Ass so much, and I just wanted to watch it. Kick-Ass 2 was a great film. Was a lot of fun. Not as good as the first one. And I was expecting so much more from Jim Carrey's performance. And just, yeah, it's very weird because they market it as like Jim Carrey having this gigantic role in Kick-Ass 2. And, sorry, spoiler alert, he's not in it for that much. He's maybe in it first quarter, first half, if I'm being generous, but his screen time is just like next to nothing. He's playing this ex-mob turned superhero. He's doing kind of a mob voice, like an Italian voice. Not, I don't know. Need to see Kick-Ass 2. Okay, so I won't get into spoilers. Just will say Eric Williamson that it's just not his part. It isn't, usually you cast someone like Jim Carrey to elevate your movie. He did not. I thought that he was you could have put literally anyone in that role and they would have had the same performance. This was not a Jim Carrey performance. And the makeup was bad. It just wasn't, and it's weird because the rest of the movie is very, very entertaining. Kick-Ass 2 is a thrill ride. It's a lot of fun. Again, still not as great as Kick-Ass 1, but that's such a elevated expectation. So I didn't think it was going to be. Maybe that's why it took so long to watch it. And when I saw it finally, I'm like, okay, kind of what I expected from this film. But it just, yeah, his performance, I was pretty disappointed. Moving on. So after Kick-Ass 2, Dumb and Dumber 2, haven't seen it, probably should have before doing this. The Bad Batch and Dark Crimes. Dark Crimes, I heard, is a another one of those like number 23 where he's kind of the serial killer bad guy, and I just haven't seen it. And this was kind of the transition um that I just kind of lost it with Jim Carrey lately, where I still think he's a great actor. I still think he's amazing, but he's really going through some weird stuff. He's picked up painting. He likes to paint pictures of Trump and that whole administration, where he's just it just shows that he's just kind of a tortured person, and he has struggled a lot with depression, and most great comedians do, um, because like the best comedians are alcoholics, drug addicts, and depressed people, and for some reason that translates into comedy because maybe they're just so stuck in the rut of their everyday life and they have to kind of shift that tone, to just keep them alive and to keep them sane. And I totally understand and I get that. And I think that's great. That these kind of afflictions fuel that kind of performances. However, it's just, I don't know, lately there's just something about him. He's just so off the rocker and strange and bizarre, and he's just kind of cashing those checks almost a little bit like Tim Burton nowadays, where it's just like, where I'm not saying he's struggling with anything, but he definitely is just doing safer things, safer roles. Yeah, and like I said, I don't think we're going to see, excuse me, another Man on the Moon performance out of Jim Carrey. I think that was just kind of a thing that he needed to do, and and like I said before, he let too much of himself kind of pour into that, and he lost a little bit of himself in that, and that's fantastic. And those method actors really do that. Daniel Day Lewis, he just called it quits. He can't do it anymore because he doesn't know how to act without immersing himself into these roles, and that takes a toll. That takes a toll on your family, takes a toll on your soul, it takes a toll on you physically, mentally, everything, especially if you're already dealing with depression or addiction or anything like that. So it's just so from here on out, and it was just announced that he got cast as Dr. Robotnik or Eggman, depending on how old you are, in the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie. It's just, I saw that and I'm like, yeah, that totally makes sense. That sounds like a Jim Carrey role now. Where before, it's kind of sad because before you heard Jim Carrey attached to anything, and it was just immediately, it was a must see. It just piqued your performance, and now, unfortunately, it's kind of lost that a little bit. But that's kind of rounding out. That is Real Actors episode 1 by myself. I don't even know how long we went, but oh my god, thank you so much, chat. Everyone in the chat for being here. Rhino, for being here. Thank you, Man Cave TV. Thank you, Dr. Ephraim from Pack Crack Fever. Thank you, MTG Strategist. Thank you, Eric Williamson. Thank you guys so much for coming in late and sticking around and just talking Jim Carrey. Dr. Ephraim says, I blame Jenny McCarthy for him and Chris Hardwick, right? Oh my God. That could really be the downward spiral of Jim. Yep. Just reading some chats before I let you guys go. I have to say, I would not care at all about Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Nope. But now that he's Robotnik, I'm interested. That's fair. I mean, I think it's going to be all anime. I actually don't know anything about it, so I couldn't tell you if it is all animated or if it's not. But yeah, Dumb and Dumber 2. Dumber felt so forced. Okay, and it's just, it's still, I still want to see it because I still love that character, and I love the premise of it too, where he was just playing like a 20-year prank on Harry. I think that's funny. But I don't know, for some reason it just kind of lost that gumption to go see it right away. But yeah, that's pretty much it. let me know in the comments, guys, if you guys, gals, if you like this, this setup of talking about actors instead of director's cut, and we'll keep it around. It's a nice way, you know, to kind of look behind the curtain to let you guys know. It's a nice way to kind of when we're doing director's cuts, it's asking a lot because I do like reviewing every bit of films that these directors have done, and I'm also acting. I'm also asking my co-hosts to do the same. So it is a lot, but sometimes it's better to do these focusing on actresses because you know we're not going to do a director spotlight on the director of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind because he's done mostly foreign films and I just haven't watched them or you know very busy haven't been able to watch them. So this is a nice way to be able to talk about some of these fantastic films without having to just stick with certain directors. So I like this. I think this is a lot of fun. You guys, I mean, everyone in the chat made this a ton of fun. Share this video all over the internets. Just to let you know, we will be back live Thursday for Magic the Gathering fans, 10th Street Hooligans, oi oi. We'll be back. Mr. Magic Wazubi, Coach from Card Bazaar, and Johnny Slivers will be joining us for that live. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then next week we take the Hive Mind on the road, and then we'll probably either do another director's cut or another one of these. So yeah, so for my the beer was great. I'm gonna out of 5, I'm gonna rate it a 4.0, a clean 4.0. It says coffee, it says bourbon barrel. I get the bourbon barrel, I don't get the coffee. It tastes like a very nice caramel milkshake with a lot of bourbon and alcohol in it. Fantastic. So a good 4.0. So cheers to everyone out there in whatever, and I'll see you next time.